All right, so we're gonna do another little chat about the last video I did on money, and there are some subtopics that I didn't get to cover. It was a bit of a longer video. I'm gonna keep this one a bit shorter than that. And it was the last video was part two. There are secrets about money, and you should listen. Now, we talked about in the last one kind of being an entrepreneur versus an intrapreneur or an employee, and kind of what you'd have to do in order to work on those things, and what the strategy would be for life and retirement, etc. Now, I want to go over. There's kind of these subcategories of those two things, and it would be investors and salespeople, which, depending on how you look at it, you could say that an investor could be a entrepreneur, or you could say it could be an employee. It kind of goes both ways. And also at the same time, individuals can just invest, etc., day to day. And then salespeople can either be, a an employee, or they could kind of it's an entrepreneurial skill you have to have at the same time. But either way, though, just to preface this is not financial advice. Do not take anything I say as advice or even act on it. This is just for entertainment, and it's just how I think about this type of stuff. But to kind of broaden out these two things, um, in a way, you're kind of either as an employee or, an invest, especially as an entrepreneur, you're going to have to, bump on these two topics. And is a strategy for life or your profession, whatever that is. These two things, they have very different kind of routes. And let's start with the investing one. So most of investors, right, hedge fund manager, person who has a wealth fund, etc., or even an individual, the really big guys, the ones who make the most with most investments, right, whether it be stocks, bonds, real estate, taking money, buying an asset, holding it, or um, improving it, right, and then selling it later. Those people, they mostly do it. The ones who are very successful with other people's money, they do not really use their money so much. They may throw their own money in the pile with everyone else's, but the vast majority of them are not wealthy because they only invested their money. This is like rookie level one mistake, and I am guilty of this one through and through. A lot of like people, they see advertisements, and or they see a lot of people talk about how you could day trade or you could invest in stocks or real estate, etc. But the big issue is, in order to get into that upper brackets, like let's just say billionaires, for example, it's pretty much not going to happen with just whatever money you've generated from a job. It's the math is way against you on that. I mean, like a lot of times you're talking about people who are investing like 50 million, $100 million and just trying to get, 10% a year, or maybe if they're really lucky, like 30 to 100%, something like that. And that takes even decades to go from like usually 50 million to a billion or something with some type of investment fund or whatever. And like a lot of investors who do it on their own, um, I mean, they had studies about people who did day trading or whatever, and they ended up doing, I think it was 80% or 88% of people who registered a day trading business in the state of Connecticut or something like that. This information came out a long while ago. All within the first year or two ended up going under and lost most of their money. And there's other strategy and all this stuff, right? But what you need to, the real point of this that I'm trying to make here is, as an investor, that it is not necessarily from a like a solopreneur or something like that the best strategy for myself or for, just logically becoming really rich. Now, there are exceptions. There always are exceptions. There are people who do it. And you have to do a lot of study. And there's a lot. The reason, from what I've learned, it's not that complicated per se, but there is a lot of things you have to sort through that are just wrong, that can confuse you, and a lot of information about the stuff. I traded in 2021, I think $600,000 in day trading in a year, and I basically broke off even. I think at one point I was down 60K, and then another point I was up, and I just basically came out flat. Maybe I was like $1,000 or something negative or something like that, and then the next year maybe I got it back. But I did hundreds, not thousands of trades, and I learned a lot. I really did. And then with longer term investing, it's a very patient game, and you can't touch that money for many of the first couple years. You wouldn't be able to really make enough to live off of. You just, in order to get that compounding interest, you just have to hold it, and you have to have something else to do while you're waiting, and you have to be extremely emotionally controlled and level-headed. It's just, unless you're fully committed to something like that, it isn't really a hobby type of strategy for the most part. I don't know how many books I've read on that topic, and I've learned a lot. I did learn a lot as far as what is realistic and how to, with high probability, make money doing it. But yeah, you can't be emotionally uncontrolled. If you're someone who's not emotionally stable or has any type of a hard time dealing with that type of stuff, then I wouldn't do it. But the thing that I've really learned is there is for me so many better ways to make a lot of money, right? And then there's other investments besides stocks and bonds and crypto and things like that. I would prefer real estate out of that because I understand real estate through and through. I've done it. I've had multiple exits from investment properties, over 100% profit, lots of cash flow, etc. And then there's also, if we're moving on over to sales. Sales is a whole nother avenue where you can become a high earner. That is for sure. I had one sales job in my life that was purely, I sold vacuums. It's embarrassing. I did it like a shtick out of high school, and I did okay at it. I actually was the top. For the time I was there, I was the highest earning salesperson for the small company we did. And it's another avenue where a lot of salespeople making over $200K, $400,000 is very doable, but you cannot do it as a passive kind of like 9-to-5 job. You have to be pretty committed to it the first couple of years. You really have to learn your business, and then you have to learn how to shift over to a business to work for that is a good place for you. And really the very best is if you can find a product that you really, really like and agree with and believe in. It makes it so much easier. And with sales, I mean, $500,000 is very doable. The higher ticket sales you get into, the better. Oh my gosh. If you could sell things like exotic cars, jets, boats, I mean, even real estate agents, if you sell higher end real estate, a lot of money in commissions for that type of stuff. I mean, you can close one deal 100K. I mean, that's, luxury housing or something like that, or even commercial, like, large commercial buildings. There's a lot of money in commissions and all that stuff. But the thing with like real estate agents or car salesmen or lower end sales stuff, it's very good training because you get the volume, but you end up not making as high in commissions. And most salespeople, the first couple years they do it, they're putting in a minimum of 12-hour days because it's a big learning curve, and you're learning people, really learning people. You're learning scripts. A lot of times you start out, you do scripts. The first time I did sales, like I had to learn like a what was it? It was like a 5 or 6 page, fully printed out script, memorized. And after you learn it, and you get so comfortable with it, you end up, being able to do it in your sleep. And you learn it's not actually a script necessarily itself that is what sells it, but it's your personality that comes out while doing it. And then just problem solving and knowing when to close the deal immediately, right? So the two things here, investing in sales, right? Investments, you've got to be a nerd, man. That has to be like both of those things. You have to, because you're eating what you catch, and that's the big difference with, let's say, an employer who you're just doing a process every day that kind of has a guaranteed pay, and then even an entrepreneur. The pricing for a lot of services is pretty well known, and you can get a very good sense of the market that you're in, and you can automate it so you're not even focusing on the closing so much. You can hire people for that, right? It's a whole other department. You're more system building and system running. But with sales, it's direct. You're learning people and people, investing. You're learning a lot of data, and that's in both sales and investing are two things you can never stop reading about, and you can never stop honing your skill on. And if you step away from those two things for a period of time, you can start slipping. And it's for a different animal. It's for a very motivated type people who are hungry, and people who like kind of that hustle type thing. So with those two strategies, you can make far more than a lot of employees, and some of them make a lot more than just even entrepreneurs. A lot of entrepreneurs are only doing like maybe take home like 70K a year. Ones who are doing small operations, like it's more of a job than it is really a business for a lot of people. So very different, and you stack that cash, right? And there's in those two things, and you kind of have to, even as a salesperson, a lot of times you still have to learn how to invest a little, or at least be able to hire someone to do it for you. But those two strategies, you typically, if you get into those, that's a whole nother way to beat inflation, right? The topic we talked about in the other videos, and money printing and how prices always go up. The sales one, though, can be very dependent on the cycle of the economy that you're in. When there's contractions, sales can really get hurt. And with investing, if you're not very careful with knowing when to get in and when to get out, type stuff like that, yet again, you can get very hurt. So you lose a lot of that safety net. So if you're a high dopamine, high testosterone individuals, maybe those two are for you. And the rewards are great. And you don't usually need a college degree, which is another whole avenue for you if you're not interested in college, right? And I'm very into that. And you can, the other cool parts about those two things is you can almost kind of do like apprenticeships, especially with the sales thing. Usually you have to do low ticket sales first. Usually you don't always have to, and you can work your way up to high ticket sales, whatever that is. Things that cost more than $1 million in a sale, right? And then also the investing thing. You can go in. A lot of that is actually very boring investing when you go to do for a large fund and you're a small guy. It's not as flashy as like day trading, or as risky. They have a lot of rules. So those are two kind of subcategories for as far as taking on the financial system that works in current times with this system we have in place. And those are pretty good viable options. I would consider them myself. So with that being said, thanks for watching the video, and hope you liked it. Have a good one.